Pensado's Place is brought to you by
hard rock, punk rock. Our guest has seen it all. You're going to learn a lot. We got a brand new ITL. You're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
Man, I missed you guys. We're back. It's been a great start to the new year so far. Glad to start ours off with you guys. Herb, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Man, I wish I could say something changed in my life. I wake up, mix a record, go to sleep, wake up, Wednesdays, come down here and do the show. It's
Not so bad, though, right?
It's a good life, man.
Absolutely. And
It's going to be interesting when the fish start biting in March. We'll see what happens if we go dark.
So I'll be doing a lot of shows by myself, correct? That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, thank God for the audience that allows us to do that. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Why don't we get our homework stuff? We got great guests and great stuff. Shall we get to it?
Absolutely. While we were off, we both reflected, and we let me give you some credit because you really pointed out how special this gift is our audience has given us, and they think we're giving them something, but it's quite the opposite. What they do for us is it just makes getting up on Wednesdays the most fun day of the week.
It really does. We are humbled by it, and in fact, why don't we tell them how humbled we are by it? First of all, happy to be coming to you. We're coming to you from the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles. Always great to be in the HD studio, which stands for
Urban Day.
There you go. Absolutely.
I got to get something. Am I doing a Vintage King today?
Yeah, but it's okay. We'll get to that.
Okay,
one of the things, let's talk to the audience a little bit about what we decided to do.
I got an idea for Vintage King.
So for our social media stuff, please know that leaving comments right below us, you'll have a chance to like and subscribe and leave a comment. Dave and I talked, and what we want to do is try to get back to you more on those comments. Immensely important to us. Those comments actually help our show survive. You guys have been so gracious to us, and we have a lot more we want to do for you. So let's keep the partnership going, hit those comments, and we'll do our thing.
To expand a little bit on what Herb said, we ask you guys for so little in return for what we do and what our guests do, but this is important to us. It can really help us out. The subscriptions and comments, and we're sometimes hard to get hold of. We always read them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can't always answer them, but Herb's about to tell you of an opportunity where you might get to ask us some stuff. In fact, I'm pretty 99% sure you'll get to ask us some stuff coming up soon. But just want to say how important that is, and
now that's provided they like us. They comment. So, anyways, moving forward, please do that. And
just so they spell Pensado right.
Yeah, absolutely. They can spell Charlie Pensado.
I think they like us.
Let's say hello to our Vintage King folks.
Yes.
Vintage King, hey, we had a good time with Chevy and Tom over the holidays. It's good to see them. Jeff Leibovich is in the chat room as usual. Do you have a Stump the Vintage King guy?
I have it written down.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
How about that?
Perfect.
So let's also talk about what's coming up at the end of this month. The NAMM experience.
It's going to be fun.
Right? So let us tell you what that is.
If AES was any indication.
Our wonderful friends at Avid have decided to have the show be at NAMM for 3 straight days. We're going to broadcast from down there. We want you to come by and see us and take a look. They're doing a great campaign. The theme for Avid is Design for Professionals. We'll be at booth number 6400 in Hall A. You'll see all that information. Booth number 6400 in Hall A. We're going to do three shows. On Thursday the 24th, Greg Wells will be the guest. We're going to talk about something interesting he's doing in the UK. Very, very interesting. On Friday the 25th, Michael Fitzpatrick, Fitz, from Fitz and the Tantrums, is going to be our guest. And then he's also performing that night at the Avid Party, which is Friday night from 6 to 8 p.m., I think. Mm-hmm. That's going to be really fun. It's going to be a bunch of stuff. And then we're going to do something that you guys have actually given to us on Saturday the 26th, right?
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
That's going to be fun. So what we're going to do live is we're going to celebrate our 100th episode at NAMM. We're going to have a bunch of special guests, to you two, to Will as well, and to all of our production staff. So be a bunch of guests.
100 damn shows.
With no hiatus. We're going to give you guys some prizes. We're going to have prizes from Pensado's Place, and Avid's going to give some prizes. We're going to have a bunch of special guests come through. it's just going to be a party. We're just going to have a good time. We want you guys to come through, hang out. Dave and I want to meet you. They're setting up situations where if you guys want to take pictures with us or pictures on the set, we'll do that each day. Let's just make it a fest. It's really an honor of you guys for giving us that opportunity. We want to give some of that back. So Saturday 24th through 26th, Greg Wells on Thursday. Friday, Fitz from Fitz and the Tantrums. Saturday the 26th, just a party. Get there about 1:30 each day. We'll go live at 2 o'clock. We'll hang out and have a good time.
We're going to shoot from there, right?
We are going to shoot from there. And these shows will air later. The 100th episode will probably air the next week. Will is in charge of that. So it's going to be a good time. Thanks to our avid friends.
Anthony and Karen and the whole gang.
And just been incredible in doing that. So we're excited. We got a bunch of stuff in 2013. We're bringing it to you. Let's get to our guests. Let's get to Into the Lair. Why don't you intro it, my friend? Let's roll.
Man, it needs no introduction. I did it within the ITL itself. As always, think about other uses for this, and whenever you're ready, Will, let's run it. Back when I first started using Pro Tools consistently, I worked with Rhett Lawrence, gifted producer, incredible writer, and there weren't a lot of plugins back in that. I was like in the mid-90s. And Rhett used to copy and paste to create delays. So in other words, if you had a vocal that went dot, and you wanted to go dot, 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 he'd just take that dot, copy it, and paste it to create the delays. And we've got so many delay plugins now, it's probably not necessary, but sometimes you want to create unusual delays like dot, 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 or dot, 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 dot. So copy and pasting gives you a lot of freedom. And then at the end of this, I'm going to show you another little technique that's going to hopefully inspire you to come up with something creative. Let's jump right in. I'm going to use my friend's D-Mechanic, and this song is called D-Mechanic. This is one of the most inventive songs I've mixed in a long, long time. D-Mechanic is essentially two main guys, Jorge Lanzas and Joaquim Zamora, and their partner Arturo, known in the trade as Blue Shirt. So let's check this out. I'm just going to play the vocal for you right now. Now here's a vocal with effects.
I like them beats, baby. I like my beats, so baby, ride my mud.
The vocal has a lot of effects. It's a dance song, a hip-hoppy, heavy metal dance song, I guess you could call it. But you saw that gap in the middle. We want to fill that gap now. In the track, there's not an instrument filling it, so I thought I'd throw a nice little delay there. Tried several delays. I couldn't get exactly what I wanted. So what you can do is you can come over here, whatever DAW you're using, set a grid, and so here's the word baby.
Baby, 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 baby.
So just copy and paste baby. Pasting it. Let's not worry about that. It's a little long, so let's get it right around there. So now I'm going to copy that one that we just pasted. And so now we've got...
I like them beats, baby. I like my beat.
Okay, let me turn it up so you can hear it. Okay, so now this is what it sounds like.
I like them beats, baby. I like my...
Now suppose we don't want it to start right away. We can do this. We can do this.
I like them beats, baby. I like my beats, so...
Or we can do this. We can, instead of quarter notes, we can copy eighth notes.
Baby.
Or we can add another eighth note.
I like them beats, baby.
That's kind of cool. So I'm just making this up as I go along, guys. So let's just put this double one here.
I like them beats, baby. I like my beat.
And then we can, if we wanted to, we can get a little nuts and let's nuke this one. It'll give it a little more drama.
I like them beats, baby. I like my beats, so baby.
Do this till the cows come home. Now, what I did was when I did this one, I thought that's kind of cool, and so I wanted it to be a little different. So what you see here is the actual. These two tracks are just so I can show you how to do this. But here's the original tracks from the song. Let me show you this.
I like them beats, baby. I like my beats.
So what I did was I took one of these. Let's pretend like this one is right here. Let's grab this guy and move it to here. Now, come over here and get anything that you can change pitch with. And so let's bring that down. Let's bring it down 2 semitones. It's the same pitch as the songs. Right now it's. If you notice, the blue ones are panned left and the brown ones are panned right. So that's still the pitch of the song. So let's bring it down a whole step. And then go to this one, and then bring this one down. The next in the scale would be a whole step. Then the next in the scale would be a half step on down a major scale, and that's what you get. So you can automate a high pass filter. So as it goes along, the part gets higher, less low end, and starts sounding more radio-y, less radio-y. Right now I've got a little bit of radio on it with the fab filters, but the sky's the limit. You can do that with guitar parts, you can do it with horn parts, you can do it with the entire track in a breakdown or whatever you want to do. It opens up a lot of possibilities. My favorite thing, besides, oh, by the way, if you remember Get the Party Started, that's what I did with the intro. I sampled the entire rough mix. And so the song just started right on the downbeat, but I sampled the rough mix and then I went up a scale. So dun 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 dun. I think I went too many dun 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 dun. My singing's horrible. That's why I'm an engineer. But that's how I did that, and it's a great technique. So experiment with it, as always, let me know what you discover that I might be interested in. Okay, next week. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to give you a little bit of philosophizing right now. One of the ways that we pick the guests on the show is I like to learn too, and every one of our guests I've learned something from, and sometimes I pick the guest in anticipation of learning something that I feel like I'm weak at. Today is probably the best example of that. Joe Barresi is our guest today, and when I listen to his records over the years, I'm just envious and jealous, and I just get angry at his guitar sounds, his drum sounds, his vocal sounds, and just want to hurt him sometimes, which I might do after the show today if he doesn't spill the beans. Joe?
I'm going to spill the beans.
Okay, well, just checking.
I didn't realize your mixes created violence, but congratulations. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I strive for, actually.
Great.
But Joe, I really can't thank you enough. You helped us out early on. We were just getting started, gave us some love and credibility, and today I just want to kind of focus on the things I love about your work, and I think that no matter what type of music a person does, I think they're going to learn something today, because your techniques, even though they're applied to certain type of genres, harder rock and heavy metal, EQ and ZQ, and guitars are guitars, and mixes are mixes, Let's just jump right in.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome, my friend. We were talking a little bit before the show started, and it seems to me that in metal and in rock, guitar sounds are taking another post-Eddie change. You know what I'm saying? They're kind of going, we're losing a little bit of the top-end buzz, a little bit of the transistorness. We're going back to a little more humbucker through a Marshall.
Real sound. Yeah.
Are you feeling that also?
I'm feeling that too. I think guys are coming in that really want to explore the sounds of, as small amps like Led Zeppelin, more plexi stuff, less high gain stuff, sometimes more pedals.
You mean like a JCM 800?
Yeah, or even earlier, vintage Marshalls, JMPs and JTMs, and trying to get those kind of tones out of that, and less preamp saturation.
So older sounds are actually becoming newer
coming
sounds
back
again.
in, yeah. I mean, tunings are still kind of in the low area. But I often encourage to experiment with normal tunings because I want to see guys play, with 2 fingers and not 1 finger.
Yeah.
And sometimes that throws a wrench in the works and makes them think differently. So, and a lot of times when you start stacking sounds too, the cleaner sounds work better as opposed to stacking dirty sounds. And
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like because my second guitar was a Les Paul and my second amplifier was a 69 Marshall, and I used to run it through 30-watt greenback Celestians, and so I'm thinking, well, the reason I like that sound is that's the sound I grew up on. My first one was a silver tone, but the case was the cabinet,
I
the
still have 2 of
lipstick
those.
case, yeah. And but it seems like it's heading back to that a little bit, Maybe
think
more,
so.
maybe more Strat as opposed to humbuckers, but a Strat with humbuckers is probably what everybody's using since Eddie. But let me ask you something. When I listen to the radio and I hear a song that's outside of the rock genre, the guitar sounds are pitiful, embarrassing. What advice would you give to a cat that's not routinely immersed in rock and metal, that's trying to create a rock type sound for their song? How would you get that cat? What advice would you give them? Because to me, they just don't really understand what distortion's about.
I think first I would just simplify. I think a lot of times, even if you're using a plug-in for distortion, try reamping it through a speaker. Just put some air into it, put a mic up, and don't necessarily think about 2 or 3 different mics and 2 or 3 different guitar cabinets and heads and combining stuff. Just concentrate on 1 preamp with 1 microphone and work in the room you're in. Whether you have a big room or a tiny room, just putting a piece of wood on the floor to brighten it up or baffling something that's too splashy already will make a world of a difference.
You do that at home, right?
Yeah, completely. I mean, some of the best guitar sounds I've ever heard are done in closets or in hallways that are made out of wood where you put a little AC-10 at the end and you mic it up with something down the hall. I've got friends with home studios where I'm just like, leave the bathroom door open, put a mic in the bathroom, compress it, and get some of that ambience and get some space, because that's where your depth comes from. Not everything's immediate.
And don't give me like $10 million pieces of gear, but like take me through a session, a typical, like say a Bad Religion session or a Queens of the Stone Age, whatever, one of those kind of sessions. Chevelle, I love those guitar sounds. A typical session, you get there a little early, the client is about to come in, start me from that point on.
Okay, well, if I was producing it, I would sort of have an idea of what songs might be problematic or might be the most challenging. So usually I, bring the band in the live room and I'll say, let's hear your guitar sound. Normally I would have everybody bring their own amps. Let's hear what your original sound is, and then I modify from there. And then I'll go to my collection of amps and start pulling stuff out that I think might complement that. And it really comes down to listening.
How many amps would you pick out based on your
maybe
knowledge of the song you were going to work on?
Sometimes up to 6 amps.
Yeah.
And just try different combinations. If like in the case of Chevelle, Pete was endorsed by Mesa, so he wanted to use mostly Mesa stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we tried different cabinets with his head, and then we tried different amps as well, different Mesa amps, and then in the case of some bands like Isis or Tool, where the sound is so heavy, I thought, well, maybe I'll pick a complete opposite amp that has like a focus, a mid-range focus, where I can kind of add some of that back in, because really the body of the sound is in the mid-range, so you can still get heavy. Excuse me, you can still get heavy, but you still need some clarity. So, I might add an Ampeg in with something as big as a Bogner or a Rivera or a Diesel or something.
Like the little 15-inch Ampeg or like an 810?
Sometimes, it could be anything. A lot of times to me it's a cleaner amp, like a VT22 or VT40, or I have an old Ampeg V3 that sounds amazing. You just to be experimenting with your own stuff to know what works.
Now, while the guitar player's playing, are you walking around the room listening to the sounds, or do you have the cabinets mic'd and you're listening in the control
I'm
room?
listening in the actual room itself, because I like to look at their hands while they're playing as well, because sometimes if you're palm muting standing up as opposed to sitting down, or how close you're sitting to the amp interacts with the sound itself. When I worked on the Tool record, we actually had a 4x12 next to Adam as he played, and he dove into that cabinet to get feedback and reacted to it, and that's a big part of your guitar sound as well. So,
Gotcha. And so now you've got the sound, you kind of got a feel for the guitar player, the vibe in the room is set. Do you already have your mics placed beforehand, or do you place your mics
I
now?
place my mics now. I'll set my room up so I know once the drums are done that I can get in. And to me, it's very important is I set it up so that not everybody is stressed making a record. So I'll have a guitar area where I have 3 or 4 cabinets, and then the vocal area, and then maybe a backing vocal area and a bass area. Because to me, it's the big picture. So I don't like doing all the guitars and then all the bass and then all the vocals. I want to put 2 rhythms down and then put the bass on there. Then I know how far I can go with the bass sound, and the bass player knows how far he can go in that structure. So I'll mic it up, and the first song is always the toughest. It's like the first hole of golf. Everybody's looking at you. You're trying to get that sound. You experiment with microphones and preamps, and once you figure out what works together, and it could change per song. It really isn't a rule.
I had our graphics department do this for me. If this was my speaker, not the cabinet, but my speaker, the average mic placement would be, here's the center of the speaker, here's the edge of the speaker. If you go this way, you're getting more high end. If you go this way, you're getting more bass. And the mic, let's say this is my mic, where would you put it? Say go in and tell me, I'm going in, you tell me when to stop.
Right there.
And how far back?
Right on the grill.
Right on the grill?
Right on the grill. I am a fan of 1 mic against 1 speaker and never 2 mics on a speaker.
Because of
phase issues. I'd rather have the sound of 2 speakers and 2 microphones, even if it's the same microphone. 2 57s on 2 speakers is more in phase to me than 2 57s on 1 speaker. Ribbon mics, if I use a Royer or something, it's usually by itself, because putting a Royer right on a grill, having to EQ it, what's the point? It's such a big, beautiful, bold sounding microphone. I just back it up 8 inches, and it's a great sound by itself, but it doesn't necessarily work with a very close mic.
My cabinet I bought in, golly, oh my goodness, early 70s. And
Chrome
the
handles?
first time I mic'd it, I didn't mic it up. I wasn't engineering then, but I was so naive. I actually took a Sharpie and put the square where he put the mic. I still have that cabinet. And every time I use it, I hit that little square that one engineer found that spot for me. And by the way, in case you guys couldn't see the exceptional graphic, he was about halfway between the edge and the center of the cone. Now, don't always do that just because Joe Barresi does it, but that could be a starting point, and then always experiment.
Yeah, I mean, if it's too dark, you move more towards the center. And if it's too bright, like you said, I do have some cabinets with squares that are nowhere near where you think you'd mic the speaker. But that is the spot once you're listening to someone playing and you're moving it or your assistant's moving it.
A lot of you guys don't know, but Joe started playing guitar at age 7, gifted guitar player and musician, and got accepted to the University of Miami, which is a premier music education program there. And so that's preface to my next comment, which is a lot of people don't understand. Now, guitar players, we do. When you play with a lot of distortion, the amp creates compression all by itself because you're getting a high ceiling limit, that you kind of hit. So you would never use compression on a. I mean, not never, but
I hardly ever use compression on guitars. If I'm looking for a clean, spanky Strat or Tele sound, maybe a compressor pedal on the way in. If I'm miking the room with some ambient mics, I might squeeze the ambient mics, but I'd never ever use a microphone in front of a cabinet and compress it ever. It's just there's no need.
Guitar players, we're different than piano players and violin players, because when most musicians, like a piano player, sits down and tries to learn a song off of a record, they learn the notes. When a guitar player sits down, we try to mimic the tone.
Yeah.
And I think that's why so many guitar players end up being engineers. And when you start changing a guitar player's tone, you're screwing with that guitar player's vibe, sound, feel. I can't play if my tone's not right. You're the same way.
The same exact way, which is why I usually try to encourage you to bring, I'm never the one to say, hey, play my guitar. Play your guitar first, and then maybe for some parts, or if the guitar player is particularly gifted, then it's fairly easy to switch. But if you're used to playing a Strat your whole life, you can't really say, hey, play my Les Paul, because there's no way. The tension on the neck, the strings, everything affects how you play. And if you're not feeling it, you know, our whole gig is to capture a performance. So
yeah, I try and tell my assistants when I'm showing them some rock stuff I'm doing, the greatest thing you can do is nothing. The guitar player, that's not kind of the sound he wanted. That is the sound he wanted. So now we've got the guitar part on tape in Pro Tools. Now in the mix process, what do you tend to do at that point?
There's a few things that I'll tend to do, and I'm always mixing on an SSL for the most part. So a lot of times I'll engage the channel compressor and just touch it lightly. And all it does is really make it come up front. It's not even killing any dynamics at all. It just makes it pop a little. I might add some EQ at that point because you're carving the mix, so you might need a little bit more clarity. Or I'm not a cutter by any means. Most people always talk about subtractive EQ. I never understood where the minus went. I was like, well, you know, if I needed less mid-range, then maybe I'll just boost more bottom and top, you know? So most of my EQing is in broad strokes as well. It's not surgical. It's
You did all that during the tracking.
well, if I'm tracking guitars, I'm usually never EQing it. And sometimes I'll run the whole bus of guitar mics down into one quad 8 EQ or one API EQ and just maybe notch a little bit at 10K, just one notch up if it needs that.
What, for those cats at home that don't have access to an SSL, well, first of all, you can drop by Joe's house. I'll give you his address. But what plugin have you noticed that would give you something close? For me, it's the stock Digione with just tweaking the attack and release. I can get something similar to that SSL.
I like the McDSP Channel G. Right. That is one plugin when I first.
The whole G series is good.
It's amazing, and it's one of those things where when I first started experimenting with Pro Tools and trying to figure out how to mix inside the box, what might actually replace the SSL before I owned an SSL, and that was the closest thing I could come. And it makes everything just a bit more upfront and punchy and a little bit more hi-fi sounding, for lack of a better word. But
cool.
It's a great plugin.
Let's jump right into some concrete examples of some of the things we're talking about now. Feel free to take it in a different path if you think there's something. You're an excellent teacher, by the way. I've sat in on a couple of panels with you, and I've learned so much. So just take this train wreck over anytime you want. On the Chevelle record, Hats Off to the Bull, on Face the Floor, excellent guitar and drum sounds and vocal sounds. Was that vocal doubled or physically or electronically?
It was doubled physically, and then sometimes I'm not really a big fan of having to line things up because I like a little bit of looseness. I think it makes it feel better. So there are some artificial, sometimes I'll add a little MXR flanger doubler or a Cooper Time Cube or just a short slap or something like that. I'm a huge fan of the Watkins delays, and I probably have 9 or 10 of them. And those are really great sounding natural delays that you can turn up that don't sound like an obvious digital delay. So it depends, but a lot of times if a vocal sounds great doubled, I'll have the singer double it. I don't really like to try to fly stuff around or make it artificial if I can.
What did you use on that long delay throw at the end of one of the? It might be near the first chorus. There's a little break in the music, and then there's this long, really beautiful delay. What was that?
I always have I have 2 delays on throws, and one of them's a Watkins Echo, and one of them's a 2290. And the Watkins is always in mono, and the 2290 is always in like a super stereo mode where you can dial out the direct and change the panning so it really goes outside the speakers. And that's usually my riding delay, the 2290, where it really just makes it come outside.
Give me 1 second here. There was on Bad Religion, New Maps of Hell, Heroes and Martyrs. Dark Ages, I think was the song. the cool thing about that song, if I'm embarrassing you, I gave you warning before the show. If you took the drums out and the guitars out, it's almost like a pop record, what's left, my friend. I mean, the ahs are beautiful, the vocals are beautiful, and then you put the kill my mother, kill my father. But I'm telling you, it worked. It's like,
Every Bad Religion song that I heard on the radio, or I thought was just, you know, they honestly could be an insanely huge pop band as well. It's a punk rock attitude, and the lyrics are, you know, more current and political and controversial, and so it really comes down to what the dirt on the bass and the guitar. We call it, you know, when you just the galloping guitar, the super fast, you know, that takes it in a whole nother realm. And Brooks Wackerman, obviously, I mean, he's so fast and so precise. But yeah, it could be, the vocals are super layered.
oh, okay. And then I've got to know this. On Been Away Too Long, Soundgarden. The guitar stack, there's a little like guitar lick that's going through the verses. That lick, I can't tell if there's a synth doubling the guitar or if it's a guitar tweaked out doubling a guitar.
That's all guitar.
It is?
It came to me as maybe 4 tracks of guitar per performance. They didn't combine anything. So
What effect did you add to it?
I believe that was already printed. That's Kim playing a little Leslie type stuff, and sometimes I would augment his Leslie by pumping it back in through a little Fender Leslie. But yeah, a lot of times, you know what I'd like to do sometimes is take, you know, Waves Tune or Melodyne and analyze a part and spit out MIDI info for that part, and then take that MIDI and insert a, you know, Native Instruments synth or something, and blend in that synthesizer track underneath. Michael Beinhorn was big on that on Celebrity Skin. He was big on actually running the guitars through modular synths and dialing in some of that.
So on the bridge solo in that song, you can kind of hear that part, and it's very tremolo-y. That's still a Leslie, you think?
Yeah, it's me taking. Sometimes I would take the track that existed and run it through a Leslie cabinet and mic it back up when I'm mixing and pre-print it, or run it through B4 or whatever the new Digi one is, DB22 or something like that.
Oh, cool.
Mr. Athletic, how you feeling? You loose?
Well,
Baddest box.
He's got to warm his arm up.
I'm looser than Dwight Howard's shoulder. Let's go.
Your labrum is not torn. Let's tee up batter's box. We got a real hitter in there.
Okay, Joe. Let's just jump right in, my friend. You're a pro at this. You kicked my ass last time, so I've worked real hard to give you some stumpers today. Guitar pedal.
Currently, it is a company called Build Your Own Clone, and it's a Rat clone pedal that has some extra features on it, and I built it myself and made a custom paint job on it, and that's my favorite bass distortion pedal right now.
Home run.
I once built the PAIA. Give me a little credit for that. Snare chain.
Snare chain is always 57 top, always a bottom mic, not necessarily always used. Beta 57, 441, pair of 1073s, phase on one of them, doesn't necessarily mean the bottom one. Bust together through Focusrite Red compressor with a little bit of compression into an API 550, maybe with a little bit of 100, a little bit of 10K on it, and to one track. Done.
Just a side note, dock him for that. Don't give him credit, because the 441 is the Stevie Nicks vocal microphone. It's no microphone for a heavy metal snare drum.
The judges are taking it under consideration.
Okay, please.
We'll be back with
please.
With
Overhead mics.
If I'm looking for crystal clear precision, Violet Amethyst vintage mics. You can't beat them, they're amazing. And if I'm looking for a fat body drum kit, the Mojave Tube MA100, I think it's called.
Give him extra points because he didn't say Coles. I'm so sick of hearing Coles. Vocal effects. Your favorite vocal effect?
My favorite vocal effect is the Watkins Echo.
Yeah, you already said that.
Yeah.
Don't give him credit for that. Compressor.
Oh man, so many. ADR vocal stressor.
Oh, wow. That's a
Well,
blast from the
currently
past.
JLM, Joe Malone Audio. His FET compressor currently is my favorite.
Cool. Stereo bus, 2-track bus.
It's a little complicated right now. It's a Studer A to D converter into a Lavry A to D converter. Studer for EQ and tube saturation, into the Lavry for the front end, and it goes digital into Pro Tools. On the mix bus is a Allen Smart compressor into a Sontec 5-band or whatever it is.
Our buddies at home, about all you can afford out of that chain is the Allen Smart.
Important stereo bus EQ though, before anything. I try to.
Dude, I'm trying to win. I'm trying to prejudice the judges here. In the world, your favorite live room to record in?
Actually, my room in my studio right now it's fantastic.
Cool. Your biggest pet peeve about guitar sounds that you hear other people do?
I think most people never realize that the part dictates the sound. So once you figure out the part, it will tell you where to go with the sound. And I've heard so many sounds, I just thought, well, you're in the whole round ballpark.
There's a reason why jazzers don't use distortion. When you play that many notes, you can't hear it. Your favorite current record that you didn't do?
Well, slow. I'll tell you this right now. I've been watching the Zeppelin '02 on DVD, and Alan Moulder mixed it. It sounds fantastic. So that would be
I'd love
my.
to have Alan on the show. He's somebody I've admired
He's
for
amazing.
years.
That would be my current favorite thing I'm listening to.
Okay, I know you can't answer this, but at least make me look good in front of the judges. Your favorite current record that you did do, and I'll accept holiday records in that too.
Well, it's not done yet, so I'm gonna say Soundgarden is the last thing that I did that I thought was really a great time.
Okay, now don't be mad, but I'm going for the win here. Your favorite keyboard for heavy metal? I got
My favorite is a B3.
Oh, you didn't get it.
Oh.
Why don't we get to corner office and introduce our man over in the corner, Mr. G.I. G.I., how are you?
Pretty good. What's going on with you guys?
Yeah, everything good?
Yeah, New Year. Feeling good.
Absolutely. You got some questions for our guests?
I sure do. First one up is from Ben Turner. Hey, Joe. You're great at getting the lower octave in your guitars. Any tips for adding that low end beef without making things too muddy?
Don't take away anything. Most guys I know will start EQing all the bottom out of everything instantly, but I usually never take that bottom away, and there's ways to make the bottom bigger by adding the center guitar track, which is super important to me, is the AC/DC left-right for main rhythm. No need to double those guitars because it never makes them bigger, it actually makes it smaller.
I got a question. So you just said you don't high pass any of the low end on the guitars?
No.
I seem to always need to.
I get my guitar sounds based around how far down it's gonna go, I think anyway. And a lot of times you can mold your guitar sound and make it tight. There's no need to get rid of any of that stuff in my world.
You're known equally as an incredible gifted mixer and producer and engineer. And when you're mixing somebody else's stuff, do you ever high pass?
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, if I did record it, then usually it's a lot more work.
G.I., give us another one.
Another one from Ophir Shamir. Hey, Joe. Wanted to ask about your general approach to paralleling drums for more punch, vocals, etc. Can you give us a point or two on the subject and how you do it?
I always have a stereo drum paralleled. In my case, it's a tube tech stereo compressor, and that gives me punch on all the kit. And I'll pump everything through it, less cymbals if the cymbals are really splashy. And then I usually go back and reinforce the kick and snare with another pair of mono compressors. And then depending on if it needs to be even crazier sounding, I'll add other stuff. Transient Designer with no attack, all release into a Spectrasonics, dirtier compressor.
Release all the way to the right?
Yeah, just so it's all sustained and no attack. And put that on a snare drum. When you have a snare that sounds like it's just small and poppy, it has no length to it, that'll add all the length back.
I heard a song of yours about a month ago, and the snare on the 2 was the normal length. The snare on the 4 was a longer length. Is that what you did?
That's sometimes I'll just ride it, just to give it
heard
a
that.
vibe.
What
There's
a great
always a lot of
idea.
moving, but depending on on Soundgarden, I used the Dynamites also, but the Dynamites on
clueless with
super
Dynamites.
fast VCA compressor just attack, and those on the snare drum sometimes, or vocal stressors.
For our audience that wasn't born in the early 1700s, a dynamite is the weirdest little compressor thingy. I'm confused when I see one. Just ignore that.
GI.
Another one from Nino Morrow. Joe, you did an amazing work on the latest Soundgarden record. The sound of the amount of compression and the interaction with the rest of the band is perfect. It'd be great to know what you use to process the drums to sound specifically like that.
There was my normal setup on the room is a pair of vocal stressors, and they're highly squeezed, and that's where all the length of my drum kit comes from. You normally just channel compressor on everything else, kick, snare, toms, overheads, just to give it a little bit of up front. My normal parallel is what I described before. And then in the case of Matt's drum sounded insane. He's a great drummer, and they were recorded really well. So for any extra, it's just usually transient stuff.
Some of our people might not know what a vocal stressor is. It's made by a company called ADR. It's a combination EQ and compressor. So
It's incredibly vicious.
do you put the EQ before the compressor or after the compressor?
I just kick the system in, and it's normally post.
Post.
Yeah, so
But
You can make
the
it side
secret to
chain.
that sound is you squeeze the dog snot out of it.
yeah.
And by vicious, what do you mean?
It's an aggressive compressor. It's not a hi-fi compressor whatsoever. You would never put it on a
got a
dry
hard
sand
knee, very
vocal
hard
and say,
knee.
"Oh, this is amazing." It immediately takes the top and bottom off of everything and
It's
makes
funny.
it.
It's called a vocal stressor, and that's what it's the least useful for.
It's great for parallel stuff, but I actually insert it. I'm not afraid, so I go in
For
there.
those looking for one, there's a cheap version made by Orange County Vocal Stressor. Have you compared the two? Or
I've
is it-
never actually compared them.
alternative?
Yeah, I've never seen an Orange County in years.
That's the one I learned on, but I never actually spent much time with the ADR. They just look funny to me. I don't
Yeah,
like them.
it's a crazy
tiny
narrow
knobs.
EQ, but when you're trying to carve out a little 300 in a room just to make it bonhamy and beefy, it's so beautiful to do that kind of stuff.
Give us one more, GI.
All right, last one. I'm actually getting a lot from this from Sergey Sokolov, Revise, and a few others. They want to know where have you hidden your original bell sound in Wavering Radiant?
Oh, I can't tell anybody that. I have a triangle on every album. It's either blaring or it's hidden, and it's part of the Where's Waldo of me.
There you go.
You know what? That just reminded me of
Secret
something.
sauce stuff, yeah.
One of the first people you ever worked with was David Kahn, and David told me that unlike all his hits, he whistled somewhere on all his
Wow.
hits, like "Walk Like an Egyptian" and all that stuff. He whistled on that stuff. But yours is a triangle.
Mine is a triangle hit. I
I
love.
mean, I got to get something. I
You
got to
need
get
a
secret
signature,
thing.
like one thing, a flanger on every song, on every record, on one different instrument. Shaker,
It
snare.
might be a little late.
I love that he didn't tell.
I know.
It was so cool.
Well, you gotta
There's
keep
only
some-
one triangle credit I got on the record, so that
Triangle credit.
it's obvious on Tangled Up in Plaid on the Queen's fourth record is one big
Oh,
triangle
let me
hit.
give you a compliment on that first Queens of the Stone Age record.
Thanks.
That was done under duress, without not a lot of budget, and done quickly,
No,
and it's
quick.
still a great record.
Thank you.
They weren't even signed then. He's the man that got them signed with the work he did on that record. Herb.
This was a very fast hour.
Yeah.
So,
You need to talk more? Let me know.
well, I was going to say we waited about a year. You're absolutely correct. Dave mentioned early that when we first started this, you came early, gave us credibility, and particularly in spaces where we wanted credibility.
I'd just done a boot camp with you. And
Oh, yeah.
One of the boot
Yeah, it
camps,
was
and
fun.
Joe killed it.
No, he
Dylan
killed
was
this.
Dylan was there, and just the audience, just like you could tell today, the questions were so
Yeah, I was reading the chat room.
excellent, because you can't touch what this guy does, and he's so
Yeah.
unassuming.
And the reaction to you in the chat room has been incredible. Thank you so
thank
much for
you.
coming.
Thanks for having me.
We're having you back shorter this time. We're not waiting a whole year.
All right.
Congrats, man.
I
Thank
can't
you
reach
very
over there,
much.
Joe. Touch my hand. I'll touch him with the other hand. There you go.
That's our new shag.
We got a bus happening right
Absolutely.
there. Yeah, bus chain.
Dave,
Joe, all kidding aside, man, thank you so much. I got a couple of my questions answered. I've been dying to figure out if that was a 147. So, can I call you? I got a couple more things, maybe.
Sure. Anytime, man.
Okay,
if you want to
man.
stop by
now you can't get rid
anytime,
of us.
you should come
Let
by.
me say this.
We will.
That'd be great.
Love to.
Jeff Leibovich, if you're still hanging around in the chat room, my friend, explain to the guys the difference between digital distortion and analog distortion, because I came from the analog world, and where redder is better, thanks to the teaching of my friend Ed C. And then when analog goes into distortion, it can be very pleasing, like in the Marshall sounds we were just discussing. But digital distortion is a different beast. So distortion is not distortion. Explain to everybody kind of what that's going on between the two and why clipping can be good, but probably isn't. And listen, we gave you a lot to think about today. We just want to remind you we really appreciate your help on the social media side with the likes and all that kind of stuff. And looking forward to seeing you guys in a couple of weeks.